He went from the prison that he was in prison. When he went from that prison, that was a person that had utmost understanding of the Imam, and he used to praise Imam in abundance. Why did it happen? It happened because, and you know what Nasbi is? Nasbi, for my youngsters, Nasbi means someone who has hatred against Prophet or the family of the Prophet. That person is called what? Nasbi. You have very many nawasib that have passed in the history of Islam. But I won't go into the detail. But the Rawai says that he was one of the Nasubi. So when you are approaching an opponent of Al-Muhammad, don't just go straight away and attack him. Give him the da'wah. Give him the teaching. We already approached the example of Fir'aun yesterday. Even the most wretched person like Fir'aun. The command was very explicit to Musa and Harun that when you go towards Fir'aun, approach him with tenderness. Approach him gently. Likewise, we have a duty towards those nawasib too. The nawasib, that people that don't have the right knowledge, go and give them the right knowledge, even though they might be the most wretched of the creation. That's why you have a riwayah in Tahdhib al-Ahkam. Shaykh Tusi quotes this riwayah, and this is again from Imam Sadeq alayhi salatu wasalam. Imam says what? Salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Iyaka wa ghusalat al-himam. Now Imam is having conversation with one of his disciple, one of his student, that when you go in the bathroom, when you go in the washroom, in old days they used to have himams, right? Separate areas, separate public washrooms that they would go, where they would take a bath. Now Imam says, when you approach those public washrooms, be aware of the remnant of the water that is left over. Protect yourself from the leftover water. فَإِنَّهَا تَجْتَمِعُ فِيهَا غُسَالَةِ الْيَهُودِ وَالنَّصْرَانِ وَالْمَجُوسِ وَالنَّاصِبُ لَنَا أَهْلِ الْبَيْتِ. Remember that the leftover water, prevent yourself from it. Why? Because this leftover water is after a Christian has taken a bath, a Jew has taken a bath, somebody who worships the fire, he has taken a bath. And most importantly, someone who despises us, somebody who has hatred against us, a Nasabi has taken a bath in the common washroom that you're using it. Now, I'm not there to tell you the fiqh masail, I'm not there to tell you diniyat, I'm there to tell you the last wording. And that is when Imam said, Inna Allah tabaraka wa ta'ala lam yakhluq khalqan anjasa min al-kalbi. Allah has not created a creation which is more contaminated, which is more adulterated, which is more impure than the creation of a dog. Allah has not created anything more impure than a dog. وَإِنَّ النَّاصِبَ لَنَا أَهْلَ الْبَيْتِ أَنْجَسُوا مِنَ الْكَلْبِ. But you want to understand that the Nasibi, someone who hates Al-Muhammad, he is more najas, he's more impure than a dog. That is not something that I'm saying out of my emotions. These are the wordings of whom? Of Imam Sadeq. But when you see that he is the most impure creation of Allah Almighty, he is more inferior creation of Allah Almighty, he is the most debased creation of Allah Almighty, again you have to be the ambassador towards it, the way Imams of Al-Muhammad have taught you. Very important. Now in social media especially, you have to be very, very mindful of the way you are approaching the enemies of Al-Muhammad. Make sure that you give them the message first. If the hujjah is tamam upon them, if you have established the proof over them, even then they do not follow the message of the righteousness, then that's not your problem. But initially you have to go and give them the message. That was one example from Imam Al-Askari. I'm going to quote another example from Imam Al-Askari, then inshallah we move on to the next Imams. The riwayah says, دَخَلَ الْعَبَّاسِيُّونَ عَلَى صَالِحْ بن وَصِيف. Now Salih is one of the commander, and he's one of the warlord who used to have his own private prisons. Now as you would understand, Imam Al-Askari was being imprisoned sometimes in his home and sometimes in the prisons of these warlords, right? So I already mentioned one of them. And now the second example I want to quote. The riwayah says that Imam Al-Askari was imprisoned by a person named Salih bin Wasif. Now Abbasites, you all know the people that were against the progeny of Abu Talib alayhi salatu wasalam. They were against the Imams of Al-Muhammad. approached that person, the wretched person, and they said, ضيق عليه ولا توسع له. Make sure you tighten the grip around him. You make his life more difficult, and make sure you don't give him any respite and any luxury. He says, أفعلوا ما قلتم لي. That I actually did what you have already advised me. وإني وكلت عليه رجلين شر من قدرت عليه. That I already appointed two of the most wicked person that I can ever think about. And I appointed them to take care, not to take care, to look after and to see what Imam al-Askari is doing and to do whatever they could do to make his life very difficult. فَقَدْ صَارَ مِنَ الْعِبَادَةِ وَالصَّلَاةِ وَالصِّيَامِ إِلَىٰ أَمْرٍ عَظِيمٍ. Instead of persecuting Imam, instead of oppressing Imam, instead of wronging Imam, they have become very distinguishable. They have become very exceptional when it comes to the ibadat of Allah Almighty, when it comes to praying to Allah Almighty, when it comes to fasting towards Allah Almighty. They have become very exemplary, and I don't know why they are not acting upon the instruction that I have already passed towards them. Then these two people were being called, and when they came, Salih bin Wasif said, Ma sha'nukuma wayhakuma. May Allah destroy you. May you have very difficult moments. What is the matter between you and this person, Imam al-Askari? Those two replied, Ma naqulu fi rajulin ma takallama wa la yatashaghalu illa bil ibadati. What should we say about a person who does not speak one single word, who does not perform one single action, but he is doing the ibadat of Allah Almighty? وَإِذَا نَظَرَ إِلَيْنَا. And whenever he sees whenever he is looking towards us, إِرْتَعَدَتْ فَرَائِضُنَا. We get very, very trembled as soon as he's looking towards us. And when we see that he's looking towards us, دَخَلَ فِي قُلُوبِنَا مَا لَا نُمْلِكُهُ. We get so fearful in a way that the eyes of the Imam were not there to make them fearful. But the ru'b and the awe and the glory that Allah has bestowed toward the Imams of Al-Muhammad is enough. When the enemy, they see that the Imams are looking towards them, they themselves, if they have a little bit of the iman, a little bit of the faith that Allah has given, they said that we become very fearful when we see Imam is looking towards us. We see him only worshipping Allah Almighty. We see him only being dutiful towards Allah Almighty. We see him only being obedient towards Allah Almighty, towards his instruction. How is it possible for us to persecute a person like him? How is it possible for us to oppress a person like him? We cannot do anything. You can appoint anyone else. So you could see the people that do not have any knowledge regarding the Imams of Al-Muhammad, when they were exposed to the ikhlaq of Al-Muhammad, they became the disciples and the students of Al-Muhammad alayhimus salam. Right? We have two examples. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Very quickly, we move on to the third example. Inshallah, we move on to the examples of the life from the history of Imam Sadeq alayhi salatu wasalam. You have a narrator. His name is what? Hafs bin Ghiyad. But before I quote this event, inshallah, I would like to quote an event from the Hajj of Imam Sadeq. Now, when you go to Hajj, there are different tents, right, in Mina. Now, Mina in itself is a tent city where you have to stay on like the 10th, the night of the 11th, and the night of 12th at least. But generally, people would go on the day of Eid al-Adha. As soon as they would stone the biggest shaitan, they would come back into their tents in Mina. So at least you're there for 2 days or 2.5 days in the plains of Mina. Now, the Riwayah says Imam was there, and there was somebody else there in the tent too. So that person had a bag. In that bag, he had around 1,000 gold coins, 1,000 dinar. Now, this is not the dinar of Iraq, or this is not the dinar of Kuwait. The dinar in old days used to refer the gold coins, and dirham used to refer as silver coins, right? So 1,000 gold coins, very expensive, a lot of money he had in one of his bag. A person, right? That person woke up and he saw and he was searching for his bag. He was not able to see his bag, and he thought probably somebody came in and somebody looted and absconded the bag that he had. So he went immediately outside. Now, when he went outside, the first person he saw was Imam Sadeq alayhi salatu wasalam. Now, he's not the follower of Imam Sadeq. He does not even know who Imam Sadeq is. But when he saw Imam Sadeq, he said, "You are the one that has taken my bag. I want you to give my bag back. I want you to give my money back." Now, Imam, instead of arguing with him, Imam, instead of having a dialogue with him, Imam, instead of disputing whatever he has said, Imam said, how much money was there in your bag? He said, "I had around 1,000 gold coins. I had around 1,000 dinar in that bag." Imam said, "Just wait for a moment." Imam went into his tent. Imam grabbed one of his bag that he had, and he brought the bag back, and within it there were 1,000 gold coins. And he said, "Take this. You were looking for 1,000 gold coins? Take this back." That person took the bag, and then when he came back to his tent, he found his original bag that he thought he has lost it. He rushed towards Imam Sadeq alayhi salatu wasalam again. He said, "Mawla." Then Mawla is my way of saying, of course he wasn't saying Mawla. So, Yabna Rasulullah, sorry. I did I did a fatal mistake. Huge mistake. Very monumental. What should I do now? I want to return you back the 1,000 dinar that you have given to me. That moment, Imam Sadiq said these golden words. He said, "We, the Imams of Al-Muhammad, when we give charity, we don't take it back." Do you see that? Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. These are the Imams of Al-Muhammad. When they do charity here, they don't take it back. And when they want to do charity in the hereafter, there is no one that can match the generosity and the charity of this blessed household. The riwayah says of Imam Muhammad al-Baqir, I want all of you to concentrate. Wallahi lanashfa'anna. You want to understand the charity, you want to understand the sakhawa, you want to understand the generosity of Al-Muhammad. See this example. Wallahi lanashfa'anna. Wallahi lanashfa'anna. Wallahi lanashfa'anna. 3 times, Mawla said. Oh Allah, by Allah, we're going to mediate. By Allah, we're going to do shafa'ah. By Allah, we're going to intercede. The people said, Liman, Mawla, who are you referring to? Mawla said, Lishi'atina, for our followers. Hatta yaqula a'da'una, till a time would come in when our own enemies would say, فَمَا لَنَا مِنْ شَافِعِينَ وَلَا صَدِيقٍ حَمِينَ فَلَوْ أَنَّ لَنَا كَرَّةً فَنَكُونَ مِنَ الْمُؤْمِنِينَ. That the enemies of Al-Muhammad would say on the day of judgment that we do not find for ourselves someone that can mediate on our behalf, and we do not find any truthful friends for us. Only Allah, if you can give us one opportunity that we can go back and do some righteous actions. But again, no one would be given the opportunity on the day of judgment. The riwayah says at the end, Imam Muhammad al-Baqir says, إِذَا كَانَ يَوْمُ الْقِيَامَةِ, when there will be the day of judgment, إِنَّ شِيعَتَنَا يأخذون بحجتنا ونحن نأخذ بحجة النبي والنبي يأخذ بحجة الله. That on the day of judgment, the Shias of Al-Muhammad will be holding the rope of Al-Muhammad alayhi salam. We will be holding the rope of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, and Prophet Muhammad will be holding the rope of Allah Almighty on the day of judgment. Right? Again, so this is the charity. This is, like, I'm not saying for you to do all negative actions. Indeed, we don't do negative actions only to think that we will get the intercession of Al-Muhammad on the day of judgment. No, nobody should do negative actions like this, right? We do have explicit rawaya that forbid us from doing these things. But very important point that we have is that we might not be the best when it comes to action. We might not be the best when it comes to the transactions. We might not be the best when it comes to the conduct. We might not be the best when it comes to the ibadah. But one thing that we have sincerely within the heart is we do have the love of Muhammad wa al-Muhammad alayhi salam, inshallah. And that's going to be inshallah. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. So we move on to the example of Hafs bin Ghiyath. Now Hafs bin Ghiyath, Dhahabi, Shamsuddin Dhahabi. Now Shamsuddin Dhahabi, what do you understand who this big figure was? Shamsuddin Dhahabi has written a lot of books on the topic of Ilm al-Rijal. He has written a book, Tadhkiratul Huffaz. He has written a book, Mizan al-I'tidal. He has written a book, Al-Mughni fi al-Dhu'afa wal-Majahil. He has written different other books. One of the books that he has penned is called Siyar A'lam al-Nubala. Siyar A'lam Nubala. Within it, he discussed about Hafs bin Ghiyas. I'm going to mention it, inshallah. Because I want to make sure that you understand the intensity and you should understand the excellence of the personality that I'm mentioning. I'm not mentioning a Maulana of a masjid. I'm not mentioning someone who is like a speaker like me that will come, you listen and you go back, I go back to my city. We're not talking about normal people. We're talking about someone who was the Imam of the time. When Dhahabi defined and when Dhahabi illustrated the status of Hafs bin Ghiyath, he says, Al-Imamu, Al-Allamatu, Al-Muhaddithu, Al-Qadi, Abu Amr al-Nakh'i. Who he was? He was the Imam of the time. Now the Imam of the time means people would refer, Ahlul Sunnah would refer for the matters of the deen to whom? To this person. He was the Allama, not the Allama. Like everybody is Allama today, right? We're not talking today's Allamas, right? Allama, somebody who was extremely knowledgeable. Al-Muhaddith, Muhaddith means somebody who used to quote the hadith of the Prophet. Al-Qadi, Qadi al-Kufa wa Muhaddithuha. He was the Qadi, the Shaykh al-Islam, the one who used to be the Qadi al-Qudat, the biggest jury of the Kufa, and he was the Muhaddith of the Kufa too. And again, he was the Qadi of Baghdad too. A very, very important figure. Now this Hafs bin Ghiyath says, إِذَا حَدَّثَنَا جَعْفَرُ بن Muhammad. Whenever Ja'far bin Muhammad, Ja'far al-Sadiq will narrate to us something, we would say, حَدَّثَنَا خَيْرُ الْجَعَافَرِ. It is the best, the most distinguishable, the most eminent, the most exceptional, the most fabulous of this ummah is nobody but Ja'far bin Muhammad from progeny of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. Do you understand the excellence of Imam Sadeq? We do have 4 important schools of Islam. We do have a lot of schools of Islam, but there are only 4 remaining nowadays, right? There's a 5th one too, which are Ahlul Hadith, but we're not discussing about Ahlul Hadith. We have Fiqh al-Hanfi, Fiqh al-Shafi'i, Fiqh al-Maliki, and Fiqh al-Hanbali, right? Hanabila, Shawafi', Maliki, and Hanaf, 4 school of thoughts, right? Who are the followers of Hanabila, the Fiqh al-Hanbali? They are the followers of Ahmad bin Hanbal al-Shaybani. Ahmad bin Hanbal al-Shaybani was a student of who? Muhammad bin Idris al-Shafi'i. Muhammad bin Idris al-Shafi'i was the student of Malik bin Anas, and Malik bin Anas was the student of Abu Hanifa. And Abu Hanifa and Malik bin Anas both were the students of Imam Ja'far bin Muhammad al-Sadiq alayhi salatu wassalam. That's why you have Abu Hanifa saying, Lawla sanatan lahalaka nu'man. If it wouldn't be for the 2 years that I went to the school of Imam Ja'far al-Sadiq and Imam Muhammad al-Baqir, I would have perished completely. Now this is Abu Hanifa saying. Likewise, the Imam of Abu Hanifa says similar lines about the Imams of the Shia too. Lawla aliyun lahalaka fulan. If it wouldn't be for Ali ibn Abi Talib, fulan ibn fulan would have perished too. You have a point. So we have difference in the personality. Though there are someone that are relying upon the others, and there are someone that are not relying upon anyone. The people that will rely upon the knowledge of Al-Muhammad are different people, and Al-Muhammad alayhi salam, they do not rely upon knowledge of anyone. Why? Because they are given divine knowledge by Allah Almighty. So we had 2 examples, right? Hafs bin Ghiyath, we already mentioned, and we mentioned another story from the Hajj of Imam Sadeq. Coming to the 3rd story, inshallah, and this is very important. Inshallah, I'm going to talk about this thing a little bit more detail, inshallah, tomorrow, inshallah, in tomorrow's majlis. And this is when we have a riwayah, in one of the narrator, he says that Ra'aytu Aba Abdullah. Aba Abdullah, as we have established, that it is the kunya of Imam Sadeq, right? So it's the kunya of Imam Sadeq and Imam Hussein. But when in the books of hadith you would see Abu Abdullah, it refers to Imam Sadeq. It says, Ra'aytu Aba Abdullah wa huwa sajidun. That we saw Imam Sadeq alayhi salatu wasalam. I saw Imam Sadeq and he was in the state of prostration. Allahumma ghafirli wa li ashabi abi. Ya Allah, forgive my Shi'as. I'm doing this translation for a reason. I don't want to go into the reasons why I have translated like this. We don't believe in any imam that can ever sin or that can ever commit any transgression, right? So when Mawla is asking for the forgiveness, he's not asking for forgiveness for the sins that he has committed. He's asking forgiveness for the Shias of Al-Muhammad in general, right? This is what we believe in, right? Allahumma gfirli wa li ashabi. Oh Allah, forgive me, or forgive my Shias, and forgive the companions and the disciples of my father, Imam Muhammad al-Baqir. فَإِنِّي أَعْلَمُ. Verily I know within them there are few. فَإِنِّي أَعْلَمُ أَنَّهُمْ فِيهِ مَن يَنْقُصُنِي. Within them there are certain personalities indeed that do not respect me, that do not honor me the way the Imam of Al-Muhammad should be respected and should be honored. Instead of Imam asking Allah Almighty to destroy them, instead of Imam asking Allah Almighty to desecrate them, Imam never asked something like that. Imam even asked for the forgiveness of the people that do not have the righteous or the best understanding of the status of the Imams of Al-Muhammad. So now, very important for the believers that are sitting here. Maybe one of you might be a very good azadar. Maybe somebody else is not doing the azad that you possibly would want him to do. But again, we would have differences in statuses. Remember, nobody is on equal footing when it comes to iman and faith. Nobody can match the excellence of Salman. Do you understand? And after Salman, nobody can match the excellence of Abu Dhar. And after Abu Dhar, nobody can match the excellence of Miqdad. Can we be like Miqdad? Can we be like Salman? Can we be like Abu Dhar? Of course, those were the exceptional examples. Those were the outstanding examples, right? Now imagine if Salman would look towards us, if Abu Dhar would look towards us, if Miqdad would look towards us, if Ja'far al-Tayyar would look towards us, if Hamza Sayyid al-Shuhada would look towards us, these blessed companions, these blessed people, if they look towards us and they would see the way we are performing, the way we have the understanding, the way we have the ma'rifah, indeed they would say that their our understanding is not as perfect, is not as beautiful as their understanding was. But again, they would have nothing but respect and honor for the sincere believers of Al-Muhammad alayhi salam at the end of the day. Even in the martyrs of Karbala, not everyone is equal, right? They are far higher, they're very high in status. You cannot match their excellence, of course. You cannot match the merits that Allah has bestowed upon them. We're not talking for us versus them. We are talking within them, right? When you see the companions, not all companions were like Habib. And when you see the family, not everyone was like Abu Fadl. Do you get my point? Not everybody was like Ali al-Akbar. There were differences in status, right? But again, they have nothing for each other but respect and honor. This is the way the Shias of Al-Muhammad should be. Somebody might be very good when it comes to the recitation of the Quran. There might be someone who is very good when it comes to the prayers. There might be someone who is very good in their ibadah. There might be someone who might be lacking even doing the wajibat. But don't mock that person. Don't ridicule the person who is not worshipping the way you are worshipping. Encourage them. And act upon the seerah of Imam Sadeq alayhi salatu wassalam. Right? We move on to the example of Imam Sadeq. Inshallah, we'll try to mention some more examples tomorrow. But one last example that comes into my mind. And this example is the example of Amir al-Mu'mineen. Very difficult for us to listen, right? Inna aduwa Ali la yakhruju min ad-dunya hatta yajra'u jur'ata min an-nar. The enemy of Ali ibn Abi Talib, he would not leave the world unless or until he would drink the drink of the hellfire in this dunya. You have this understanding, very pure understanding, and that's why we have another hadith. لو كل ملك خلق الله تبارك وتعالى وكل نبي بعثه الله تبارك وتعالى. If all the angels of Allah Almighty, if all the prophets and the messengers that Allah has dispatched, وكل صديق وشهيد, and all of the martyrs and all of the shuhada, all of the truthful, the Siddiqun, كلهم شفعوا في ناصبي لنا أهل البيت. If they all were together and intercede for the people that have hatred against Al-Muhammad alayhi salam, أن يخرجه الله تبارك وتعالى من النار, that Allah may take that person out from the hellfire. ما أخرجه الله تبارك وتعالى من النار ماكثين فيه أبدا, that Allah would not take a nasbi from the hellfire, even if everyone on this earth and the heaven would like to mediate on behalf of that person. ماكثين فيها أبدا, he will remain into the hellfire forever, perpetually. This is our belief for the enemy of Ali ibn Abi Talib. Now see the way Ali is treating his enemy. There is one hukum for the hereafter, and there is one hukum for this dunya. In this dunya, you have to establish the hujjah even upon the enemies of Al-Muhammad, with at least with thoughtful dialogue, at least with a dialogue that you can communicate the message effectively. The riwayah says there was a Khariji. Khariji, you know, people that came against Ali ibn Abi Talib in battle of Naharawan. The riwayah says Ali ibn Abi Talib was giving a sermon. He said very difficult lines. He says, قاتل الله كافرا ما أفقهه. May Allah destroy Ali ibn Abi Talib, na'udhu billah. I'm not going to quote or translate everything. What an eloquent speaker Ali ibn Abi Talib is. Now he knows how eloquent Ali ibn Abi Talib is, but he beseech Allah Almighty, he invoked Allah Almighty to do or to act against the commander of the faithful. فَوَثَبَ إِلَيْهِ أَصْحَابُ عَلِي. There were companions of Ali ibn Abi Talib. Now you can understand what kind of companions Ali had. Malik al-Ashtar, Hashim al-Mirqal, Muhammad bin Abi Bakr, Qais bin Sa'ad bin Ubadah, Ammar bin Yasir, Abdullah bin Abbas. All of these big companions were sitting there. They all went to give that Khariji a lesson, right? To teach him something, to teach them the lesson in their own way. Ali ibn Abi Talib replied, Ruwaida, Ruwaida. Hold on for a moment. إنما صب بسب أو عفو من ذنب. There are two ways to react when somebody would abuse you. Either you would abuse that person back, or either you would forgive the sins that he has committed against you. It's not so easy, my dear brother. It's not so easy. If somebody abuses you on your face, imagine somebody like Ali ibn Abi Talib giving a sermon. I cannot fathom and I cannot understand. Imagine I'm giving a sermon. Somebody stand against me, and after standing against me, he abuses me on my face right in front of all the people who are sitting here. Before I would say anything, the people, the believers that are sitting here would come and would defend me and would protect me. But imagine Sayyidul Bulagha, the one through which people want to understand the eloquence of the speech. Ali ibn Abi Talib is giving a sermon, and somebody abuses him. It takes a lot of guts. It takes a lot of control. That if somebody abuses you, instead of abusing him back, instead of asking your companions to beat him, you reply with forgiveness and you will reply with pardon. It's not so easy. And this is the reason. We believe in the message of Al-Muhammad because they practice whatever they preach. They were not preachers like me, or they were not preachers like so many other preachers that would say one thing on the minbar, or they would say one thing, they would teach one thing and preach one thing, and they would act on contrary when it comes to the action. No, they preach only the things that they acted upon. Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu lima taquluna ma la taf'alun. O believers, why would you say the things that you yourself don't act upon? So you go back to the example, and we turn our attention, inshallah. Some of the examples I wanted to quote more, inshallah. We were limited with the time tonight. Inshallah, tomorrow, if we have some time, we can go through some of more examples from the life and history of our sixth Imam. But remember, Imam Sadeq alayhi salatu wasalam, the khulafa of the time, the rulers of the time, the hukam of the time, They wanted to assassinate him not one time, but more than one time. And of course, history is history. One time they wanted to assassinate him. You know, the person who assassinated, who executed, who eliminated Imam Sadiq was Mansur al-Dawaniqi. Now Mansur al-Dawaniqi wanted to kill Imam not one time, but more than one time. One time he wanted to kill Imam Sadiq at a place which is called what? Haider. Right? It's a place in Iraq. Right? A little bit close to Kufa. So he wanted to assassinate Imam there. And he instructed one of his commander, Razam bin Mansur, to go and kill Imam in Hira. But Allah protected Imam there. The second place where people wanted to kill Imam, or Mansur wanted to kill Imam, was at Rabada. He says, وَمَنْ يَعْذُرُنِي مِنْ جَعْفَرَ بن Muhammad وَاللَّهِ لَأَقْتُلَنَّهُ. Who is going to kill Imam Sadiq? Who is going to kill Ja'far bin Muhammad? By Allah, I would execute him, I would kill him the earliest opportunity that I would have. That was the second time. Imam, they wanted to execute Imam, but they were not successful. The third time, they wanted to execute Imam in Medina. And the instruction were given, there were 1,000 soldiers that were dispatched. And the instruction was very clear. فَهْجُمْ عَلَى دَارِ جَعْفَرَ وَخُذْ رَأْسَهُ وَرَأْسَ إِبْنُهُ. That go and attack, go and charge, go and assault the house of Imam Sadiq, and make sure that you behead him and his son Musa. This was the third instruction, third time that Imam was about to be assassinated, but Allah protected the Imam. The fourth time is when Mansur called Imam Sadiq. They were like, Sheikh Bakr Qarshi has mentioned around 7 or 8 more examples where Imam was about to be assassinated, but Allah protected the Imam. Likewise, Imam Hassan Mushtaba, he was poisoned not once, he was poisoned more than once, right? But the last time when he was being poisoned, the poison was very difficult, was very dangerous. Likewise, Imam Sadiq alayhi salatu wassalam, when he was about to be assassinated, Imam was reading this dua is very important. Anytime you feel that you are in very difficult situation, this is a gift, this is a tuhfa, this is a hadiyah from Imam Sadiq alayhi salatu wasalam, and he would say what? Ya uddati inda shiddati, ya ghawthi inda kurbati, uhrisni bi'aynika allati la tanam, waknufni biruknika alladhi la yuram. Oh Allah, you are my most dependable when it comes to the difficult situation that I'm going through. You are the one that answers the call of the distressful person, the person who is going through the distress. You are the one that answers the call of that person. Ya Allah, protect me and shield me from the vision that never sleeps, Ya Allah. And Ya Allah, enwrap me, enclose me with your protection, Ya Allah, that can never be destroyed, that can never be damaged. But my dear brothers and sisters, one time came in, Mansur called Imam Sadeq alayhi salatu wassalam. When Imam Sadeq came to meet Mansur, Mansur offered some grapes, and when Imam ate those grapes, there was poison in those grapes. The way Imam Rada alayhi salatu wassalam was being poisoned, the way Imam alayhi salatu wassalam was being tainted, same way Imam was being poisoned. Now when Imam was being poisoned, his situation changed very drastically. The riwayah says the situation of Imam changed so drastically that you could see only the face of the Imam. The body of the Imam, the limbs of the Imam got so weakened, got so debilitated that you could see only the face of the Imams, and the bones and the limbs of the Imam got extremely weakened. The riwayah says in one of these days, Abu Basir came to meet Imam Sadiq in order to console his family and the companions. In this last meeting, when Abu Basir came to meet Imam Sadiq, he saw Imam Sadiq bedridden, he saw Imam Sadiq on the bed, and there were companions, there were members from the house. As Imam Sadiq was about to leave this world, the wife of Imam Sadeq, Humayda started crying. She cried and she wept so profusely. Then as she was crying, the companions that were standing there, they started crying too. I say that this is the last farewell that Imam Sadeq is having with his companions. It is a very difficult moment. It is the moment of grief and sorrow. But my heart goes, and I'm very sure that the heart of Imam Sadeq would go in his last farewell to the farewell of Abu Abdullah. When Abu Abdullah came for his last farewell, he called each and every of his sister and daughter, and he proclaimed and exclaimed, and he says, Ya Ruqayya, Ya Sukayna, Ya Zainab, Ya Kulthum, alaykum minna salam. And when these words were said, that O Ruqayya, O Zainab, Kulthum, and this is the last salutation of Hussein ibn Ali, and this is the last time Abu Abdullah is giving the farewell and the goodbye. My dear brothers and sisters, when Imam uttered these words, the riwayah says that the sister, the wife, and the daughters and the close relatives of the Imam, they came close to Imam, they encircled the Imam, the way like a janaza was there in the center, and they all encircled Imam Hussein. Somebody would come up and would kiss the face of Abu Abdullah, as somebody would come and would kiss the forehead of Abu Abdullah, as somebody would say, Wa walada wa Husayna. A young daughter Sukayna would come, Sakina would say, Ruddana ila Ruddana ila haram jaddina Rasulillah. Oh Baba, return us to the sanctuary of our grandfather Rasulullah. And at that moment, the women were crying, Al-Firaq, Al-Firaq, Al-Wida, Al-Wida. And they were bidding the farewell, they were saying goodbye. As Imam is passing, Imam went to find, and this is the way Imam said goodbye to his family. We return our attention to Imam Sadeq alayhi salam. As Imam was about to pass away, he called his son. Imam called him. He said, Ya bunayya idha mittu faghsiluni, fa inna al-imam la yughassiluhu illa al-imam. Oh my dearest son, then when I would pass, you would wash my body, you would enshroud my body, you would take care of my janazah, you would take care of my funeral. For verily an imam would not die, but an imam would take care of his funeral. At that moment, Imam turned his attention toward the Qibla. He stretched his leg towards the Qibla, and at that moment, somebody says, Bismillah wa billah wa ala millati Rasulillah. Rahimallahu man nada wa Ja'fara, Rahimallahu man nada wa Imama. My dear brothers and sisters, Imam was about to leave this world, and Imam left this world in the state of ghurba and isolation. Mawla, when you passed away, of course Imam called them, took care of your funeral. Of course Imam called them, buried you. But when he was burying you, and you were about to bury, and my mind goes, Imam called them, will think about this scene too, this event too. My dear brothers and sisters, when Imam Zainul Abidin came in to bury Abu Abdullah, he assembled the pieces, the trembled pieces of Abu Abdullah. He gathered it in a piece of a cloth. He put it into a grave. As soon as he put it into the grave, the riwayah said, the narrator said, Imam Zainul Abidin came off the grave. He was searching for something. I saw him searching for a finger. He took the finger of Abu Abdullah. He took the finger and took it back to the grave of Abu Abdullah. What is the matter with this finger of Abu Abdullah? The riwayah says, when
Hussein was martyred. Everything was snatched from Hussein. A wretched person came to the body of Hussein. He was searching something that he can take from the body of Abu Abdullah. He did not find anything, but Hussein was wearing a ring. He came in order to take the ring of Abu Abdullah. He wanted to take the ring, but he was not able to do so. He took a knife that he had. He decapitated the finger of Abu Abdullah.
Ya Sadeq.